Last year.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Wednesday, December 3rd meeting of the trustees of Walnut Hills Cemetery. We're at Town Hall and we are in the Zoom space, and we will run this as a hybrid meeting. Let's see, just I'm just seeing a message here. Jerry says he will not be joining.
Okay.
For flooding.
That doesn't affect the forum, I think.
No, it
No,
doesn't.
you have it for.
Because we have. Okay.
Cool. Great.
Okay. All right. So Jerry not attending, Jocelyn Murphy not attending. All other members are here, and we have Jack Corcoran, member of the public, attending as well. On the agenda, this may have been my mistake on the agenda. Under item 2B, says 2024, it should 2014. That's the existing monument design application form. And I don't think the date is on the form, but we'll get to that one. On the minutes, you have in the packet the draft minutes of the September 10th meeting. And I may have done this wrong, Jessica. I apologize, because the copy that everybody's seeing it's a clean looking copy, but as usual, it does have some proposed edits by me in them. If anybody wants, I have a printed version of that. If anybody wants to see how many corrections there were by me, but to be honest,
I think they have the one with us.
Do they?
It's all underlined.
Oh, is it? Oh, are they both in there?
Yeah.
You're looking at that
Oh,
one,
so-
it's underlined, it's just in black and white.
Oh, this
That
is
one's
one.
not in red. It's not in red, it's all
Sorry.
underlined here.
All right.
Yeah,
Oh, you know what? I've got it backwards. I printed the draft.
yeah.
Right. Scratch that. Any further proposed corrections to the draft minutes?
There was only one thing I read last night
Mhm.
under monument design, even though I wasn't here last time. It was under monument
okay.
design, page 2. It was like 8 lines down. There was, I believe, a typo. It says RM discussed he meeting the. So somewhere there,
Help me find it, Peggy. Then.
under monument design, it would be
Yeah.
page 1,
That's
2,
on
3.
3. Is it
The
on that
last
page?
paragraph. What am I looking at? This is what I'm looking at. Page 1, 2, 3.
Okay, and then over the next page or on
Yeah,
page
page 4, right here,
Oh, I see. Okay.
monument design
Yep.
guidelines.
It was 8 lines, so you said.
So about 8 lines down.
Oh,
And,
discuss the meeting. I think
Yeah.
it's probably ought to be.
Yeah.
All right. Thank
That's
you. Good catch.
Other than that.
Okay. All right.
no typos.
I think we're gonna thanks for Peggy. I think these are perfect minutes.
Yeah. They are.
Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes of September 10th with changes as I proposed and as Peggy has noted?
So,
So moved by Lisa, seconded by
now that I
Peggy.
think I'm sorry.
Roll call votes as usual. On the motion to approve the minutes, Lisa Carter,
Aye.
Peggy McGuire,
Aye.
Tom Johnson,
Aye.
and Randolph votes aye. It's unanimous. All right. Moving along, I've got a memo.
Wait, excuse me, I would like to address the board at some point. I don't know if you want me to do it at the beginning of the end or what you'd like, if I have opportunity to speak or not.
You know what, we can fit it in that. Why don't you
Okay.
go ahead, Jeff, just introduce yourself,
Yeah,
get your
sure.
name on the record.
So my name is Jacqueline Corcoran. I live on Walcott Road, precinct 16. Both my mother, Madeline Corcoran, and my father, Thomas Corcoran, were trustees of the cemetery. My grandfather is Walter A. Devine, who faithfully served the town of Brookline 51 years as superintendent streets and town engineer, and was one of the engineers who was involved in designing the new section of the cemetery. So I'm in the cemetery a lot. My mother passed away in April, so I've been down there more frequently than I am. But over the past couple of years, we have noticed the increase of unleashed dogs, which brings me here today. The town did a great job on the cemetery plot after my mom died, putting down seed and all that, but with the terrible summer we had, it didn't grow. So God love my brother, I went out and bought all new topsoil and seed. So I was down there 3 times a day with my watering can, watering it, and may I say, it looks quite lovely. Over that time period that I've been there, I have cleaned up at least 5 dog poops off the lot. My brother cleaned up another one, which I'm sure there's probably more, but he didn't tell me about it. There was one time I was watering and an unleashed dog came up and pooped right in front of me with the dog owner behind. And I confronted the dog owner and I was visibly upset. And she told me she didn't have a bag to pick up the dog poop. So I strongly suggested she find a bag, or I was just gonna call the police. At that point, I had no recourse. Probably they couldn't do anything anyway, but she cleaned it up. I have seen people in bicycles with their dogs, you know, they're riding the bicycle, the dogs are all the way around. I arrived another time and I saw a man with his unleashed dog running all around the plot. And I thought, do I know? No, I got out of the car and I said, do you not see new grass seed juice? And it was just a different world. Like I was upsetting them. Another time I tried to get in my car and there was a young girl behind me with her dog. And I said, is your dog on a leash? And she said, no, the dog's fine. Don't worry. I'm like, no, the dog needs to be on a leash. I work at the Potterham Branch Library part-time. So yeah, the staff parking lot backs up to the back of the cemetery. So a lot of people walk their dogs and they go up. There's a fence that's broken that people cut through. And I can't tell you the number of times that you see people come, with the leash dog, they go through the fence, unleash the dog, and the dog goes. Peggy, I think you were there one day and we actually witnessed it, and it happens frequently. So I'm here today to ask you to do something. I can give you 1,000 more examples. On the flip side, I've met some lovely people, walkers. One walker said to me that, and I didn't bring it up about the dogs, but she said to me that unleashed dogs is a problem. Even when she tries to walk, the unleashed dogs are everywhere. So I have stopped people, rolled down the window, very nicely said, oh, do you know there's a leash law? You need to have, you know, and they look at me like I have 19 heads, but people are clever because they keep the leashes with them. So they're not, you know, they know. And the other issue is these professional dog walkers, that it's big business. And it's happening at the cemetery. They come in, they drive into the cemetery. I can tell you exactly where they go. Now, their dogs are leashed. I can't say anything. They're nice. The dogs are leashed, but they're taking, 4 dogs out at a time. It's become a dog park. I'm not against dogs, but it's a final resting place for our citizens. And I am near traumatized on what's happening up there. It's getting worse by the minute. So I'm just hoping the board can address it.
Yeah, thanks for coming to me for this, Jackie, and talk about this. Let me just put it in context a little bit. And there's a trustees question and there's a town staff question. The regulations that are posted on the website under the cemetery section include the dogs in open space bylaw. That's kind of a baseline here, because that would apply to any park.
Any park,
right?
any park that is not part of the green dog
Right.
program,
Right.
you cannot have.
Right.
that salt.
So, the thing for us as, trustees of, one of the 2 cemeteries, the only active one, is that, with respect to dogs, the cemetery, unlike many other cemeteries, it's operated as dogs are allowed into the park. We've been looking into some other cemeteries for benchmarking purposes, looking at their landscape and their policies. And, as some of you will learn by now, there are plenty of cemeteries where dogs are not allowed, nor bicycles. Tom is nodding, right? Is this the case of?
Every cemetery I've worked at, no bicycles, no dogs.
No dogs, right, okay. So I think, we've just been through a regulations review for some of the basic policies that were on the books, or, visiting and lots of, and burial eligibility, things like that. I'm glad we did this housekeeping. That was really, cleanup. And I think, of course, it was conducted in public meetings. But I wouldn't characterize most of that as, substantive change. I think the dog question is is one that, you know, that would be a substantive change because we're aware that the cemetery is used by many dog owners. Also, and I ride my bike through there because I think it's a quieter way to visit, but it's not, I can't do that in other cemeteries. So I think when I'm going to talk a little bit at the end of the meeting about agenda for the next couple of years. And, you know, I think, you know, Jack, thank you for the comments. These are, you know, this is the kind of thing that we need to be listening to and thinking about, to review, you know, other aspects of our regulations and see whether they should remain or whether they should be changed. I mean, Tom, I'll go back to Forest Hills for a second. I went there a lot during the pandemic, and I remember that it was during the pandemic that they started disallowing bicycles
Yeah, dogs at that time.
and dogs, right?
And it's still, even with security there, people are still coming in and they don't care. They just feel entitled. And even when you approach them, they say, okay, and they just keep walking.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's a problem. Monroe is a problem too, even though they don't allow dogs there as well.
Neely, do you want to talk about it from the town perspective? Are you getting other, you know, complaints or questions called into Park and
Yeah,
Rec?
I know that we have received few complaints about Old Bearing Ground in particular, but I have not heard about Walnut Cemetery in particular. And you know, in Old Bearing Ground, like when we receive those comments, like our rangers like to go and you know, keep an eye.
Smaller
on,
property, it's a little easier.
smaller property is easier, but overall, you know, when we do get these specific comments that, okay, there was this section of cemetery or this, you know, usually happens in the morning or evenings, like when we have like additional information. In those cases, we typically send our rangers and they kind of canvass the property, the park, and, you know, like have a conversation with the owner of the dog. And, you know, typically it's a polite conversation. And, you know, when they do have the conversation, they're able to kind of stop it at some point. But this seems like this is a ongoing issue, and because the cemetery at Walnut Hills is so large, it's, you know, it's probably like hard to target like where this is happening. But what we've also done in the past, like this happens again all the time in our park spaces, like where even if a park is participating in a great dog program, there's a certain hour where dogs could be allowed off leash, right?
And otherwise not allowed.
Otherwise not allowed, and even if, you know, that happens, you know, dogs are off leash, when they're not supposed to be off leash. And again, that's when the rangers come in, and, you know, there are like some parks that are worse offenders than others. And we just have to put like, you know, additional signage and communication. So for time being, I think that's what we can do right now. Think about some additional signage. And, you know, you mentioned that there was a broken fence on the back side of the Butterfly Library. So we can
It's more
take a look
than
at
one
that.
location. Yeah.
Okay, so we can take a look at that also, like where people might be coming in. So at least like taking care of the entry points.
And maybe even signage.
Exactly, and then signage, like, you know, as some critical points where people are entering, so that people are aware. And, you know, if there was like any specific time of the day, you can like noticing, this like higher activities, like please let us know. And again, that way we can communicate with our rangers and they can present and monitor. And we'll also communicate with our cemetery staff. We have people and staff there, and when they're up and about, like making sure that they're communicating as well, because this is really not allowed.
Yeah.
Just having dogs be able to go into the cemetery, I would say, you know, it's a privilege, you know, that
Really is.
people are getting, you know, enjoying this open space. And it's really important that everyone is respectful of these spaces.
And what it is, it's not so much the neighborhood folks, because they, you know, they're walking their dogs on a leash.
Yeah.
It's the people that are driving and they're passing the house, that they're not parking there, they're driving into the cemetery. You go around, there's empty cars everywhere. But so they caught on to it. And it's almost like the word is out that come walk your dog here, especially the professional dog walkers. That bothers me more than anything. But you know, when you see 4 dogs pop up with a car, I mean, it's not what it's meant for, what I believe in It's not what it should be. And so signage, is there. I see it, when you first come in, but it's not in and around the cemetery. And I mean, I'm not one for signage either. I mean, it's a beautiful cemetery. I don't want to put,
Right.
it's just an awful way to put signage in and around, but that's what people are doing. So they're not saying it.
Yeah.
Yeah, also, we were, when Peggy made me aware of these comments, yesterday, I went back and looked, I found a PDF copy of the whole signage package, which I may forward back to you just for handy reference,
Yeah.
because it does have very good, there's one sign that is actually mostly about dogs,
Yeah,
and it's worth looking at where that is.
yeah, yeah.
So just, let's pause it for now, because this was not on the agenda. I think it's very clear to me that when we talk about dogs and any policy changes, we need to notice that for agendas. We will certainly get members of the public attending, so I'd like to not continue more here, but we will in the future. With respect to the regulations work that we did earlier, because the prohibiting or allowing dogs is not within the designated authority of the trustee. I think that must mean that is DPW's decision to make. Remember, we're the only public body who can have public meetings about the cemetery. That makes sense. So we can have that discussion in our meeting, but I think as trustees, the farthest that we would be able to go would be to recommend to DPW to either change or not change that regulation.
Or modify.
Or modify, yeah,
Professional
sure.
dog walkers are not allowed, or they'll be fined.
Which is a
I mean,
research
it's
topic in
right, yeah.
itself.
Right.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
And I remember, I don't know if I told you before, when we did the tour in the spring and I had all those drawings, I found your grandfather's name with engineers, Mr. Devine.
Yeah.
On the bottom of
Wonderful.
some of those.
Makes
So
me happy.
It's the surveying of the whole 1950s section. It was designed in the late 40s. And, the engineers had gone in there and found all the rock outcrops and systematically removed it to make this beautiful lawn landscape, that was the trend in cemeteries at the time. But it took some heavy lifting and gravity on part of the engineering support.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Those are
Thank
in good hands up on the fourth floor.
Great.
Right.
And could I
Again.
stay then? Could I stay? and
Yeah,
listen?
we
Great,
can
thank
certainly
you.
say,
Thank
but
you.
we're gonna move
Thank you
on
for- yeah, Thank you.
to monument design guidelines. And what we've got here is three materials. There's my memo to you on the beautiful new green, if you get it digitally, Brookline letterhead. Then there is there's the one that said draft on the top. This is a monument design and description approval form proposed. This is the existing one. They look pretty similar. They look pretty similar, but the new one has some, outline form regulations on the back. There's also a copy, I don't think we're going to need it, but there's a copy of the 2018 monument design guidelines. And what I wanted to do in the meeting, it was just make sure the trustees were aware of some of the work that I've been doing with staff since the last couple of meetings, and to get your comments about it. As it said in the memo, this proposed new form represents a bit of a change in strategy in regulation change. And you heard me complain about, I don't like poorly written or sloppy regulations that just get me agitated. And it had taken us into the monument design guidelines. You remember Jocelyn and I had met early in the year. We started working on the document, and that was consistent with the housekeeping work that we put in with the other regulations, that visitor clause, and so on. But like I said in the memo, the conclusion that I came to after meeting with staff was that we were working on the wrong problem. There was nothing significantly wrong with the regulations, but the process of vendors submitting designs and getting action on them by the town was not working, and it was resulting in, something approaching half of the monuments in the cemetery being installed in the last, if not applying this guideline. I clung to your comment about let's put this on the vendors from that meeting in July. And basically that's what this does. It's to give the vendors only the choices that the guidelines allow.
Yeah.
And that being the case, that was for me the argument for not changing the guidelines for the moment, but just changing the process whereby vendors and Javi and Greg Hawk said that there's just really 3 or 4 vendors who provide most of the monuments and in the cemetery, maybe 3/4. To let to allow them to only have the colors of stone, for example, that the guidelines have always allowed for years and years and years. Light gray, medium gray, dark gray. That's it. So as of the 3rd of these meetings, which was sometime in October, Javi and Greg had discussed this with me enough, and they were ready to give it a try. Again, this is something that the trustees could go only so far as to recommend to DPW that we try this process. And that's where I come back to you as trustee to see, do you have any questions or critiques about it? And are you willing to let me keep what it's down on this?
I think this is great. I think I think that people shouldn't have a problem understanding exactly what guidelines are. So,
Okay.
thank you.
They do think they know what the guidelines
Well,
are, but the stones in the cemetery show that they don't.
Right, it's too ambiguity. I mean, this is excellent because it forces the monument design company to check the boxes.
Right.
Check these boxes, and not to use, narrative as to, what they're planning to do.
Right.
So this is, to me, a huge improvement in the process. Yeah, it was a process problem. We were spending a lot of time looking over the older guidelines, when I think this should be the solution. Then we have our cemetery supervisor double checking this before any pink stones get into the cemetery. And I'm not so sure, I don't believe that was happening in the past. Not sure where the breakdown was
The pink
and how
stones
that.
have been actually there for a very long time.
Okay,
So
then it-
not to complicate things, but like
Right.
I'm talking
Then-
1940s, 50s,
Oh,
60s.
all right.
That's not a recent problem, but I've also been I've been driving in other cemeteries while working on this. The Newton Cemetery, for example, big one that was in the middle of Newton, and in certain periods of time, there was either a very conformist culture or some very strict application of guidelines, because there are entire sections of that cemetery, of course, most of the monuments are raised. And what I'm interested in is the overall character of the landscape that results from that kind of, a defined range of appearance. So,
This is super.
Tom, any thoughts?
Well, I think having the dimensions is critical on there because it's really where the monument companies really push the envelope all the time.
Right.
They may have already talked with the family about having a base that's 3 foot long and where it only allows a
Right.
2 foot long base. And because they've already sold it, they really
Yeah.
start trying to push it through the supervisor at the cemetery.
For whatever reason, at Walnut Hill, that particular problem, and I know what that's like, we have not seen that one as much as other departures from the regulations. And the most common departures are stone colors that aren't allowed, portraits of the deceased
Yes.
attached or laser cut onto the stone, filling of the engraving with metallic or opaque paint tinting.
Yeah, it's a big problem.
Right, and sort of pedestal shapes that wider, or excessive inscriptions. That one that's the hard one. But again, it was when Jocelyn and I started working the regulation, you know, we got there was a lot of judgment to be applied to, and I'm kind of relieved to take a break from that and just try running the cemetery by the rules that have been on the books for at least 20 years.
It's easier to enforce that, right?
And-
Because it's always
Yeah.
been.
But, and, you know, I'm interested to see how the vendors manage with it as well. So, you know, we don't need to take a vote on this, but my sense is that, you know, that if you all are in support of you know, of recommending this to DPW, there's a little refinement to do. If you flip over the back, it's kind of hard to see there because it's printed in black and white, but some of this text is a little gray.
Oh, yeah.
And, like under Tom, under number 4, there's actually some completely missing dimensions, that were never given. Not that they've been disregarded, but whatever the maximum dimension is for a single monument on a single burial site, it's just never been stated. So that's the example of something that needs to get put in here for this outline to be relatively complete.
Because it keeps it uniform and not one stone 4 inches higher than a row of stone.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
So it's very important.
Thank you again for making staff available.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
really appreciate, and that, you know, Javi and Greg have been very creative and good faith about it.
Yeah.
And it's always, it's, I would say even a little fun to be down there and,
Yeah.
get to see what else is going on.
Yeah, no, and thank you so much to you, Randolph, as well, because you put in a lot of effort, you know, and dive to collect so much information and data about the existing conditions and, you know, being available to meet with staff as well. And I think that this form makes it so much better
Mhm.
and easier
Simplistic,
and
right.
simplifies things. So, yeah, we're excited about this.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. We'll carry on. I would say, you know, it's probably gonna be, you know, in the first, I hope before the next trustees meeting, but it's really not gonna be driven by the trustees meetings. It's gonna be driven by, me finding some time to get together with staff again and, you know, decisions about the new letterhead, you know. There might be a template for this.
Oh, right, we probably need to update that still.
Okay,
You'd be adding, on the previous form, you had the address for the cemetery at the bottom. Will you be adding that to,
yeah, that's a
with the phone number?
that's a good
That's
question.
local
Yeah,
199.
yeah.
See if they have any questions, they may be calling that number.
Interesting. Yeah. I think it looks like with the new letterhead template, Jessica, that all the, I've seen them from all different departments and they all put in their own address block or contact
Yeah.
information or, you know, for the board or commission.
Randolph, one thing I didn't notice on there was floral vases that come sometimes with the monument.
I mean, like blanking it.
Blanking it, and then the issue becomes when they get damaged. Families are calling up thinking the cemetery should replace them,
Mm.
and becomes quite costly.
Mhm.
So a lot of cemeteries are not allowing the attached floral vases.
Yeah, I've
Either
seen
bronze or-
1 or 2 of those. I'm making a note on the side. Because again, within the scheme that is proposed here is to not add language about that yet, but I think to come back to for sure. Because those seem to be getting more and more popular.
Yeah, and it's something you're battling almost every day with vases that were 30 years old when they were allowed.
Right.
And thinking that the cemetery is gonna replace it now, and you pay $10 for it,
Right.
and now they're $300. And
Are they joined to the monument or they?
some are joined,
There's just
there's
matching.
they're like a resting spot on them, or they're just placed in the side of the monument,
Right.
or like a solid bronze. Something, they're quite expensive.
Hmm. Okay, so, let's go on and catch it a little bit here. The next item is the Community Preservation Act letter, and I apologize, I didn't put this on the cemetery, on the agenda quite the right way, but we've got, it is, as it says in 3A, it's the support letter for the tomb, not for the Foster Fence restoration. And, you have in the packet this letter from me from September 19th. So that's a week and couple days later than our last meeting. And we discussed this at that September meeting, but we didn't vote it. We hadn't put it on the agenda to notice it. So really, what do you think here? Are we just, can we conduct a vote on it and then just convey that to the
Yeah.
CPA?
Yeah.
committee?
I mean, I think it's mostly, the vote was something, I completely missed that we should have taken as well. So I don't think we have to let the CPA committee know, but it's mostly for our records that we took the vote.
So we finessed it in the text of the letter. You'll see it says, as chair of the, this is me writing, as chair of the trustees cemetery, with the endorsement indicated by the trustees. So that's, that's sort of weasel language for not saying that we voted it, but,
We plan.
this, and I adapted the text of the letter from a similar one for the Foster Path project in a previous CPA funding cycle. So if you all have had time to skim it, I would welcome a motion for the trustees to approve this letter for 19.
So moved.
Moved by Lisa,
Second,
seconded by Tom. Roll call with Parker,
Aye.
Megan Guire,
Fine,
Tom
fine.
Johnson,
aye.
and Randolph votes aye.
Thank you.
There we go.
Appreciate it.
Catching up.
You know how long CPA grant money's lasted?
I want to say it's 2 years. I want to say it's 2 years. And typically, if there are projects where it would need more time, and you can always go back to CTA committee and request for time extension.
Oh, for actually spending it down.
Yeah. So we just have to have that approval ahead of time, before that funding period expires.
Next is this, just a catch up item on cemetery regulations. And what's in the packet is the 2-page document that has the 4 sections of regulations that we voted in 2 separate votes. First to recommend to DPW that they adopt the, housekeeping edited and cleaned up regulations about visitors and burial lots. And on the second vote, and you'll see the dog waste bylaws in the middle of that. That is not ours. That's just, it's there because it appears on the website, but it's basically borrowed from. Is that from town meeting? Must have been that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so not ours to write or edit, but eligibility for lot purchase and for burial on the veterans lots. Those are within the authority of the trustees given by the legislature, and we voted to adopt those. Those are enforced. So the 2 questions for DPW, about those 2 groups, can you give us a project report?
Yeah, actually, this is something I should have, done sooner, but, based on what we discussed, we had already reviewed all the edits that was made, which is again, more of a housekeeping updates. And, on our end, we are okay with the updates. Like what is remaining now, action item for us is we just need to update the website.
Okay.
I updated it.
Oh, you did? Yeah. Because, yes, so it's up to date, and there you go.
Can I just ask, because we've been talking about other policy changes or recommendations about policy changes,
Yeah.
what is the protocol? Do you need to get the commissioner's signature, or do you have authority as part of it? Like, how does the
Yeah.
approval on the town side happen?
Yeah, so, if it is, a minor thing, I can review that, but if it's something, that really deviates from the rules and regulations, then I would, definitely love to sit down with the commissioner and make sure that she's aware and we're, doing the right thing with the approval.
Right.
So it will stay within parks and,
Okay.
the larger DPW.
What's consistent about that, when we were starting to look at the monument design guidelines, what it looked to me that in both the 2010 and the 2018 version, that the approval of them was at that time jointly by the trustees and the parks director, their chief at the
Right.
time. And, so there's certainly precedent for,
Yeah.
for doing it that way.
Right.
I get what you're saying about
Right.
things that might be higher
Right.
significance or
Right.
higher temperature.
Right, exactly.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay,
All
great.
right, we'll go have a look at the websites.
Yeah, I just ask a question here.
Yeah, hey.
Regarding the rules and regulations. These are wonderful, but as far as enforcement goes, what are our expectations on that? Would that be the cemetery supervisors? We have 3 staff there, full-time, I believe.
You're talking about visitor
Well,
behavior?
I'm
Peggy,
just
or-
looking at, I'm just cut flowers in good condition, like, number 8, anything, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say that it would be the cemetery supervisor, and, to a certain extent, like maybe our visitor services supervisor as well, like who, is, not only looks at the cemetery, but looks at like overall, parks and open space, especially like if there is anything to do with the dogs, like then definitely our rangers and, who's also visitor services supervisor would get involved. So yes, cemetery staff and a few other staff would be involved.
The visitor service, is that Kira?
That's Kira.
Okay.
Kira, yeah.
Okay. All right, again, just, for context here, this is, it's nice to have the housekeeping behind us. I'll talk in a minute about, next coming couple of years, because I think there are some places we could come back and consider, additional information, clarification, or possibly, substantive changes. I've got a section here called Chair Update. I will keep it brief. I wanted to let you know about a couple of things that are not, questions for you, but more information to keep you filled in between our quarterly meeting. You saw my memo to the select board in September 23rd. This was the second year that I had appeared before them, like all the chairs of boards and commissions are. And I think yet again, the trustees of Walnut Hill Cemetery kicked the process off. We were the very first ones in the first cycle somehow, and I think we were pretty early in the process this time. It was, it took me longer to write the memo than it took me to stand there, for 10 minutes. And that's probably the right way to do it. And if you turn to the back page, I felt it was important to let them know what we some of the work that we thought was in the interest of the cemetery. One of them is monument design regulation. And I'll tell you, in September, this was in the middle of the process of those meetings with staff. So, we've actually gotten to action on that, before the end of this calendar year, just not through writing regulations, but through really changing the work process. I mentioned to them cemetery funds expenditures, and this came up in the context of the master plan discussion, which is the last item. The select board had some awareness because they go through the budget process, and that they know that the cemetery money is different from a bounty that the town meeting makes decisions about. The connection was that as I had mentioned even the previous year, I think it's going to be helpful for the cemetery over the next couple of years to work towards an update of the master plan or your master plan. If only for the reason of studying future burial space. I was looking over the meetings that we had conducted in 2022 and 2023. We had 9 and 10 meetings in those years because of this whole kind of scramble reaction to running out of lots to sell in late 2022. And, we got through it by the end of 2023, but it was kind of a reactive process, as I mentioned to you. And, we probably bought the cemetery, 8 to 10 years of space. It's already gone beyond the first areas that the 2004 master plan contemplated for expansion. and, you know, the question of expansion, it raises the question of whether to expand, or do you just start selling only flat market areas, you know, all of these things. This is what we would discuss. At the select board, you know, they thinking budget, they said, oh, do you need support for, you know, for funding for master plan services? And before I could even answer the question, one of the other members said, no, they have money for this, you know, expendable fund for the cemetery. And where the balance is somewhere in the neighborhood of $900,000 or something like that. You and I met a month or so ago. I'm hoping that within the next year that we can get back to a point where the trustees are a little more in touch with the spending from that fund for the cemetery. You know, maybe there's a quarterly review process so that you and I need to talk more about it, and to see the language in the 1981 Act from the legislature is, you know, supervision of expenditures from the cemetery funds, which does not say define or approve or disapprove. It does not say, you know, prior decision making by the trustees. But I think some more year-to-year information about that is probably what we probably got to be doing. So that was the select board.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yeah,
I think
sure.
it'd be helpful for each quarterly, just to bring up a summary of expenses. If that would be useful on a more ongoing basis,
Yeah, we need to talk about how that would work. We
just for a further
the
awareness.
most recent
rather
thing,
than-
yeah,
Yeah, I missed the last meeting when they had Morgan Stanley here.
Yeah.
Right.
That talked at the overall, and, you know, whatever it was, 35% stocks and bonds. But
so, yeah,
more ongoing understanding of what are the expenditures, like we're gonna be spending, I think it was, I was reading 600,000 on, I thought, whatever I wrote down, but, you know, but maybe an ongoing basis might be more useful.
Yeah, we can discuss that.
yeah, the last one that I found that there were the last full report was in 2021, and there was some pandemic interruption here, and there was also changes. That's two park directors ago also. And there was a question about an expenditure brought to the trustees a couple of years ago for this proposal for a temporary staff position. Could that be paid from the fund? You know, the discussion went to town council. We got an opinion about it. Parks withdrew it. Anyway, there was no action on that. So I don't know if quarterly is what we need to be doing. I think the information that the first round information that you sent me is I still have some questions because there's no time frame on it, and I don't want to make extra accounting work, but I think we need to. I agree with you, Peggy. I think we need to get something it's sort of predictable, and I have the same goal for when do we look at investments, when do we look at the rates, when do we look at eligibility changes, you know, as a sort of year-to-year calendar.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be quick about this. That was, you know, for next year, I'm going to try to put that together for 2026. We have the meeting dates here. These are four basic meeting days for regular quarterly meetings. They don't currently envisage anything like starting a planning process. So what I want to do is get rates, spending, eligibility just built into those four meetings. Because just so we're looking, if we would find ourselves looking at each of those things each year, it would be a little closer to that.
Yeah.
The one other thing to mention is, and I'll hand it to you for staff update. For the and I mentioned this here before the trustees, because they're gonna remember what we went through in 2022. The planning process, the expansion study that we went into in late 2022 and all of 2023 was in response to a report that we got from cemetery staff in September of 2022, and I just become chair on the inventory of lots in the cemetery. And remembering that there are different types, right? The full body, the double lot, the cremation lots, and, you know, so on. And that set of data was the sort of alarm bell going off that, oh, we kind of got behind. We need to do a little more planning. So I will pull up that data and send it to you in a more formal request, you know, early next year. Asking for an update next September. So that'll be 4 years, you know, September 2026, 4 years after that last report. And again, I don't think that needs to be done every year, but I think it might be information that would tell us how soon a problem is coming back. I thought of this because I was at the Newton Cemetery. They are building, if you go to the website now, you can read about this. They're building out their last piece of land. Have you seen it, Tom? It's way.
It's over there recently.
Yeah. And their website has this very such sad reflection in it, like, well, I guess we're going to be changing from an active cemetery to a cultural site, or, you know, and we got to think about what that means. And interesting, you know, that they're there. Walnut Hill is not, you know, we don't have to be if we don't want to be. But it's, you know, there isn't any municipal cemetery in Newton, so I guess that gets a lot of the trust. Let me stop there and have you tell us about staff update.
Yeah, that sounds good. So just a few updates on our CPA funding for Walnut Cemetery and also Old Larry as well. First of all, you know, the FY25 CPA included some of the tree inventory work, and, you know, hazardous removal and planting for Walnut Hill Cemetery. So we had, again, already done one round of hazardous removal there. And the funding actually runs out in June 30, 2026. So this winter and early spring next year, we're hoping to really focus on, you know, if there's any additional hazardous removal and pruning work, and then, you know, start thinking about planting, because of December and January is when we start to think about our spring and fall planting for the next year, and Walnut Hill Cemetery is something that we will be looking into as well. But then we are also aware that in our CIP, we have the roadway and drainage project, and it looks like phase 1 of that. Right. And we want to make sure that we're, you know, coordinating with that and making sure that, like, where we plant new trees are not going to be next to the thing in the roadway that's going to be torn apart.
Just back to trees for a minute. Do you know whether there's a plan to replace 1 or 2 of the shade trees at the main entrance?
Yeah, we can take a
you know the
look
one
at
that I'm
that.
talking about,
Yeah.
the big
Yeah.
lawn with no
Yeah.
graves in it. There was I think a maple and another hardwood that were taken out
I
in the
see.
last
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
It may have been, it was probably just before you got here.
Yeah, we can definitely look at that. Yeah, if there's any other locations that you can think of, you know, definitely let us know. We are going to be doing that,
Okay.
you know, planting locations this winter.
Yeah, those were the most significant trees that were removed that I noticed.
Are they in active burial areas, the cemetery, or more ornamental ground?
The 2 that I'm talking about are not there. It's to me, it's an area that it got a lot of attention on the tours in May, but it was an area that was right in the middle, and it was laid out for burial, but it was actually never divided into plots. Nobody ever got buried there, and it may be sort of untouchable now. It's just a beautiful lawn in the middle of the entrance, and there had been 2. There's kind of a rise, beautiful grass. There were a couple of trees on it. It was kind of it was picturesque, you know, extremely, and because these trees were out on their own.
Were they diseased?
Yeah, they were ill. They should have been removed.
They were end of life or diseased, you know? Were they end
Oh,
of
I
life?
don't know the answer.
Alternative tree.
I think, the trees would be removed only if it was really severely diseased and hazardous, and especially at the cemetery,
Yeah.
because if it's not affecting safety, then, we would just like leave it alone. We would not remove any trees. So my not knowing what the tree was, what the condition is, that's my assumption, that it must have been a hazardous tree, being hazardous and being dead.
Yeah. And in a very accessible area at the entrance to a lawn that you would expect people to walk across. I certainly did.
Yeah, but certainly we can look into that area, and I wouldn't be surprised that if it is not already on Pete's list,
Okay.
replacement of those
Okay.
trees,
Yeah,
So
yeah, that would be nice to
Yeah.
know. And
Yeah.
I mean, that would be spring anyway.
Great,
Okay,
Right.
maybe you'll.
Right.
Okay.
yeah,
Right.
exactly,
Great.
so hope
I-
that
yeah.
that's.
I was just thinking about it in the future, is that considered as future burial space that will be developed? And then the impact
We
of the
can make
trees.
any
in
master
there.
plan recommendation we want, Tom. I
Yeah.
mean, if historically that, as the center panel of the 1875 design, it was once proposed for grave. I would say one of the issues would be that, because the oldest monuments surround that space, it would be, you could have some, chronological incompatibility if you started allowing new monuments in there. Because the ones around it are actually very old. They even, I found this in the listing of the National Register of Historic Places listing, that Brookline was, the Walnut Hill Cemetery was the first cemetery in the United States to regulate the appearance of the landscape through controlling the design of the monuments. And somebody came on one of the tours and said, gee, where are all the obelisks and statues of, winged angels? And those appear to have come into force, those regulations, around 120 years ago, or, so, but the earliest monuments from the 1880s and 90s are nearer to there, and they look pretty old. So that would be a good question. But it's just a policy and planning decision. There's no covenant that says that we have a burial.
I'm just thinking about some of the problems that I've encountered with trees that were planted 40 years ago. And they develop graves around and all the impact it's had on
Right.
graves.
Right.
So be careful what types of trees are going into certain areas.
Right, what types of trees and
Yeah.
location.
With how deep rooted they are,
Yeah.
there's crawling
Yeah,
roots.
yeah, that's a really good point about as we're planning for the creative.
I mean, it's a really interesting one, because we know that Walnut Hills is the shadiest public space in Brookline, right?
It's a cool little
What-
spot to
It's the
provide.
coolest and the shadiest spot,
Yeah.
and that's on the record. We've got the GIS data
Yeah.
that tells us that.
Yeah,
So, yeah, and that should be part of any discussion about future planning, or what do you do with the land? Sorry, you have other things?
yeah, no, and I just also wanted to give a brief update on foster fence. We're working through we're hoping,
Remember, this
we
is
have-
the old burial ground.
Old burial
the
ground,
The iron closure.
yeah, so we are in conversation with Cassidy Brothers, who, is, are very adept with doing these, restorations, the metal work, and, we've had, site walks with them already,
Mhm.
so they know the project, and, we're, again, like working through that right now, and we're hoping that, we can get, their contracts, get them started sometime in the winter and early spring next year. So we're trying to move that along, because it's a very highly specialized work, and it will take time. So we just want to move that along. So we're working on that. And I also want to briefly mention that Walnut Hill Cemetery is also the roadway work and drainage work is also in our CIP right now. I know we don't meet next time until March, but then, with we have the budget season going on, like
Yeah.
we've already met with Melissa and Charlie Young about our CIP projects and I just want to give you all a heads up that there might be a time between now and March, we might have to do a special meeting to review the CIP funding for that, like how the funding comes from and, is it like all from town or do we have to, discuss the PWSW account. So just
Got
want to give you a heads up. I don't have any information right now
Okay.
on where that stands from the sixth floor, but just want to make you all aware. that that might be
Just to
coming.
back up, you have some money already in hand from a CIP that already went through the process.
We
but
already
there's
have.
more work to do, more money
Yeah.
needed. Okay.
Yeah, so we have received $100,000, I believe FY 25 last year, to do the actual design and documentation for the
Okay.
work that is needed. But then we do not have the construction funding.
Right.
So this year we went back and applied for construction funding.
Okay.
So that's when, because, you all might be aware that we are going through some tight budget issues, like in down right here, right now, this year, and it has been ongoing since, last few years, and specifically this year it's tight. So again, like I said, I do not have any information right now. We have not heard much, but just wanted to make you all aware that this might come up between now and
Okay.
March.
The timing with that
Yeah.
and getting the trustees closer to looking
Yeah.
at the cemetery funds year to year.
Yes.
It's gonna help.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And just for is this for sort of like selective replacement of the most distressed areas of roadway?
Right. So this phase, in our CIP, for FY 27, we requested 600,000. And 600,000 was, planned to cover the roadways and the forest conditions. So we have a plan that shows up all the roadways and, red being the forest,
Yeah.
yellow being fair and green being, okay. So the red, all of the red, poor condition and as much of the moderate conditions, as the budget allows.
Right.
So that was the target.
And is it mostly road surface, not also safe storm drainage?
As part of the roadway surface, replacement, we would have to do some drainage work as well.
Okay.
Because, get roadway and drainage just tied together and there are, it is linked in together and
Okay.
there are areas where, we have like maybe severe drainage issues. So that will be addressed as part of that as well, which
Okay.
Affects the roadway integrity.
Exactly.
And then you're gonna have the same problem again and
Exactly.
asking for more money.
exactly,
Yeah.
so and it's
So, yeah.
Yeah, so again, I'll keep you all posted. I'll keep you posted,
Okay.
Randolph, and if we have to do something, I'll make sure that there's enough notice ahead of time.
Okay.
I just have a question.
Yeah.
The town cemeteries, I don't know, being on the private side, apply for grants and historic grants.
Yes, with the Old Bearing Ground and the tree inventory, we have, we applied for the CPA Community Preservation Act grants, but
Which is public.
Yeah.
But are you talking about private?
Federal grants, state
we
grants,
might be able to do that if there is any grant funding that that fits, what the requirement of the grant, so we might be able to do that.
yeah, just think where
Yeah,
it can help with
yeah.
the town budget,
Yeah,
some grants where
yeah,
money could be sought.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it might be that, funding from other levels of government is more within reach than say private
Right.
foundation. But anyway, just guessing.
You find out for some options that might be going
Yeah,
around.
no, that's a
Send
really
them
great
along.
idea. Yeah, we definitely have to do the CPA funding, but yeah, other federal grants is a good idea. Yeah, that's it on my end.
Okay, all right. You've got the meeting dates sheet at the back. Everyone gets a nice long summer because we don't meet between May and September. But we'll be back, the thing to note is, really back just 2 months from now in February. And I actually kind of like that we get 2 meetings in winter and spring, but before the summer. We'll see if there's another one related to budget. What I'm gonna bring to the February meeting is something that's meant to be kind of a durable calendar about these, like what time of year do we look at rates? What time of year do we look at
Finance.
spending and eligibility changes? Just to try to make it a little more predictable. And that had me sort of going back to the minutes and seeing, it is really quite amazing how many years go by, when we had another meeting from now, we will have been away from the rates for a couple of years, so we could, I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any other business, or we've got some deeds still, I'm gonna sign those. Okay, we could have a motion to adjourn, let's do it the proper way, and we have the motion by Tom, seconded by Peggy, on the motion to adjourn, Lisa Farber, Peggy McGuire, Tom Johnson, Tom, you vote
Yes.
yes, and Randall votes yes. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.